And welcome to the trade on this Thursday. Before we get into the charts, let's take a look at what traders are watching out there today. Asian assets in for a rocky ride after soothing words from the Bank of Japan's Deputy Governor about recent yen volatility. They were overtaken, though, by a negative turn in US markets and a reminder that conditions remain challenging and volatile. Warner Brothers Discovery has written down the value of its TV assets due to the uncertainty of fees from cable and satellite distributors and sports rights renewals, sending its shares down around 10% in extended trade on Wall Street. Toyota has downgraded its global vehicle production plan for the calendar year 24 by about 5% due to output suspension at domestic factories. And oil prices have gained more than 2% overnight, bouncing back from those multi-month lows after data showed a bigger than expected drawdown in US crude stockpiles. Let's get into the charts now with a focus on currencies. And ATFX's global Chief Market Analyst Nick Twidale joining us now. Nick, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, just before you came on, we were having a bit of a joke about, 1 week in markets is an eternity at the moment, isn't it? Because so much has happened.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, currencies, everything really. It's been volatility across the board and very difficult to pick the next 200 or 300 points in any currency at the moment, I think.
Yeah, well, let's start in Japan because this is essentially seen as potentially the catalyst for this this sell-off in risk assets that we've seen with, of course, the Bank of Japan lifting rates, the yen appreciating, and then we saw the unwinding of that carry trade.
Yeah, I think obviously it was very, very hard Friday and Monday, really. This time last week, I think it was just kicking off, we'd seen the BOJ hike, and it was a surprise to some, but not to others. And it was backed up, I think, for dollar yen in particular, by the Fed holding steady. And then it felt like the non-farms coming through. And to me, even though the non-farms came in weaker and we saw that 0.2 jump in the unemployment rate, that wasn't a huge divergence. And we'd seen those divergence the other way in non-farms, and certainly not the hard reaction. But it just felt like everyone's, especially in carry trades, so the Aussie yen, dollar yen, euro yen, sterling yen, they ran for the door at the same time, and we saw these huge capitulations. And there's the chart. I didn't even bother with the hourly charts at the moment.
It's pretty obvious what's going on there,
because it's pretty obvious what's going on. But even then, some of the comments we've got the BOJ calming markets. Yep. The BOJ's accounted for about 700 points in the last 24 hours. Where we got slightly dovish, more dovish comments out of Japan yesterday, and then a little bit better from UEDA today, or a little bit more hawkish, I should say, from UEDA, which was expected. So we're jumping all over the place in the yen. I think personally there's more carry unwind to come, because I think we have seen a change in the underlying fundamentals, and it's very difficult to say that when you're seeing the volatility in the market that we've got. But certainly from a dollar yen point of view, on Monday we're getting intra meeting rate Fed cut calls from certain people in the market. That would certainly put a lot of pressure on dollar yen, and even though I think you've got a bit of reassurance from the BOJ this week, we are going to see for the next couple of days at least more volatility across yen pairs. I don't think we can just nail it down to dollar yen. And then I think we will start to see trends building in. And to me, the trend dollar yen in particular is probably to the downside. And I think that's going to be true with the euro yen, Aussie yen, and sterling yen as well. But dollar yen, I think, is going to be the main focus.
All right. Guaranteed movement, at least.
I can guarantee movement. How's that?
What then are we seeing in the Aussie at the moment, which has been under pressure?
Aussie's been under pressure, and sharp moves there. And once again, that's the daily chart, so it doesn't quite show us. But that was a bit of a capitulation, and that was on the day along with Aussie yen moves. It had held firm at 64.80 for a long time, and that chart's probably not doing it justice. And then bang. It reminded me of the GFC when I was actually sitting there trying to trade, and you just couldn't find a bid for love nor money, and it just went, and we hit down to 63. I think 63.46 was the low, and then we've had a bounce back into like pretty familiar ranges that were useful. But it's going to be very interesting. We've got Michelle Bullock talking later today. I still think we've got this sticky inflation problem in Australia, which will probably keep it bid. But then if we do see this global capitulation that some people are talking about, Aussie will come under pressure. There's no doubt about that. One of the interesting moves I've seen over the last few days that I've kind of been focusing on is that gold in what we would normally see safe haven buying coming to gold, it didn't come. Like there were some nasty sharp moves.
Yeah.
But overall, gold's now back on recent lows. Now, similar to stock markets, gold's been at all-time highs as well. So maybe
nonetheless, a surprise, particularly given that high geopolitical risk at the moment.
Exactly, it's huge geopolitical risk. You've got Middle East tensions that could go very, very, very south very sharply. You've got potential global markets capitulation, and you're seeing carry trades unwinding, but gold got smashed. So that will also put pressure on Aussie as well. So that's one of the factors I'm looking at, and it's as you said, it's fantastic and interesting times, but some of the usual correlations are breaking down, and I think we're going to see more volatility, not less, over the next few months.
All right, further afield then, what are you seeing with the pound at the moment?
The pound's been relatively steady for a change.
Right.
It's back down to recent lows as well. This chart, and it was actually the standout chart to me today when I went through, is like it's hit these levels a few times, and I think it's failed to gain ground. And I think even last time I came on, and as you said, a week's a long time in markets, that we were looking for more topside because it was seen as almost as a haven trade against the euro and against the dollar. But for me now, if we break to the downside, it will open away, maybe down to sort of like that 120 level that we saw consolidation at, and that would come with a bit of dollar strength and pound weakness. But it's to me, it wouldn't surprise me if on the crosses in particular, the pound stays a bit sticky.
Have we seen any fiscal measures from the new Labor government that may have or potentially could move?
Not enough yet, I think, but. Obviously, I keep my ear to the ground in the UK and speak to people fairly often. There is a bit of an expectation that there will be some more fiscal measures coming in, and that's not normally, I think we discussed it last time, it's not normally great for pound strength. And I think that's why we're seeing some of these preemptive moves to the downside, and while it's sitting on that support level against the dollar. So change is probably more on the fiscal side than on the Bank of England side. May start putting a bit of pressure on the pound over the next few months.
You don't think the BOE is going to move?
I still think they're going to be under pressure to move, so I think they will go.
Right.
But I think they're going to hold in a little bit stronger because talking to people in the UK, they're still talking about sticky inflation like we are here.
Yep. What about across the channel then in the Eurozone?
Similar sort of issue that we had with gold. The recent moves, looking at the euro remained strong when everything else was getting tanked on Monday and even on Friday. So we saw the euro move back up to 110, and I think we're going to see the chart pop up here. And I was watching other currency, like dollar yen was taking it in the neck, and yen crosses, and we saw that sharp move down with the Aussie. Euro Aussie did about 450 points on Monday to the top side. So there's a lot of, I'm going to use discombobulation on this one. I don't know what else. There's a lot of correlations that are breaking down. When you'd normally see, if pressure comes under the Aussie in the Asian time zone, you'd normally see the euro get a hit once Europe opens, and it didn't. So on the back of that, I think we're seeing euro remaining firm for a while.
Well, many people have lost their heads. You're talking about discombobulation. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Nick, great to talk us through what's going on in currencies. Plenty of movement and, of course, trading opportunities. Thanks for joining us from ATFX.
Thank you very much.